Hello and welcome to the Dale Dialogue. This is Pallavi Jha. I'm the Managing Director of Dale Carnegie India. And in this Dale Dialogue today, we have with us somebody who's been in the space of HR for many, many years, quite an expert, and holds an extremely high position of influence in his organization. So today we have Rajeshwar Tripathi, the Chief People Officer at Mahindra and Mahindra. Welcome to the Dale Dialogue, Rajesh. The auto industry really has had so many things coming from all sides for it, for even before the pandemic. You had the shift to Basel III regulatory, you had competition, you had technology, you had many, many things that were impacting the general business model of the auto industry. So what do you see as the near future? I won't talk about what will it be 5 years from now, but what would you see as the near future, maybe a year or two down the line for the auto industry?
The automotive industry has been at the cusp of a very, very big, I would say, disruption. And this has started happening much before the pandemic came in. And this was in two or three areas. The first is, as you rightly said, it's around the technology, and that is the most understandable and the visible part of the disruption that we have witnessed.
Right.
The second has been around the business model, which again you made a brief mention, and this is obvious. It's practically every industry would have seen it happening. But there are two other things which added complexity and actually accelerated the kind of the challenges before the automotive industry. And one of them is obviously, the regulations, the regulatory challenges.
Correct.
So whether it is, the diesel versus gasoline, the BS6 and all the other regulations which came into impact, right. Many of them almost at one time, at one go.
Right.
And this has resulted in the industry having to hasten its pace of recalibrating itself. And even as, it was struggling with the other changes which were happening on the technology. And the last thing, which is also very important, is the kind of changes which have happened in the marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it is the intensity of the competition, whether it is the globalization of the entire automotive industry, all the major international players coming into the country. And it's a very, very intense competition. And I would say the marketplace is now more defined by the fact that customers are spoiled for choice.
Right. Absolutely. It's definitely a customer's market. But, even I guess demand is slowing down. So right now, challenges even on that front. That said, where do you see what is that one big disruption that you were able to actually address? Because COVID is something that everybody else has faced, but like you rightly said, there were many disruptions that you were facing before COVID, and therefore maybe you have a head start on how to manage a crisis or how to deal with a disruption and go forward. Any insights on that?
Yeah, so thanks for this question. Actually, I'm a very strong believer in the fact that every crisis is actually a very, very big opportunity to reinvent yourself. And this has been proven time and again, and especially with Mahindra and Mahindra, I can vouch for it, that this is absolutely a part of our DNA. And many people call it resilience. Many people call it, ability to bounce back. I would rather call it our ability to convert a crisis into an opportunity. And this is what I would actually call one of the important parts of the culture of the organization. We don't
Right.
get cowed down. We don't get bogged down. We are very, very resilient. We have seen ups and downs in the past. The leadership knows its job pretty well. The organization backs you up extremely well. We
Right.
are very empowering, very entrepreneurial, even in these difficult times. The amount of empowerment is unbelievable. And what does it do? It actually propels you to act. It propels you to respond.
How do you get this whole culture, the DNA, from right from leadership to the down the ranks? How do you build a DNA and a culture like this?
It is more of how do you respond
Mm-hmm.
in such situations, and people watch you, right? So here is where I think the leadership's ability to conduct itself on the how part of it.
Mm-hmm.
How are we responding to the crisis, right? How are we responding to these unprecedented challenges? The moment we get that right, and also in terms of walk the talk, what I'm saying, actually people see you doing it, right?
Right. Right.
uh, it's cascading. It's pretty infectious, I would
Yeah.
say. It builds a lot of it gives a lot of energy to the people. It gives you that level of confidence. So that's the first bucket, the response of the leadership.
Right.
The second bucket is about of this DNA or culture, is that uh, how well you have empowered the organization, right? Uh, and these won't come in the times of crisis. If you start doing it overnight in terms of crisis, it's not going to work at all. These things are built over years.
Right.
And empowerment is not delegation of authority. Empowerment is whether I feel empowered in my mind, whether I'll get the backing, whether I can take risks. Risk taking is a very important part. In this kind of a crisis, what we have seen in the last, say, 5 months, I have seen people going all out and doing whatever can be done in their domain areas. And they felt empowered. They felt as if, they can do it, they will do it, and most importantly, they'll get the backing of the organization. Yes, we can make mistakes. All of us, each one of us, do make mistakes in the work. And how does the organization handle those kind of mistakes? How well we are able to back people, and so all these things actually get into play. And the third level, Pallavi, is the third thing is equally important, is to build the requisite capabilities
Right.
across the organization, because you do need very specific skills and capabilities in these kind of times, where you have to respond to a lot of challenges which are very hazy by the nature, right? Not everything is in black and white. There are a
Yeah.
lot of unknowns.
Right.
And this kind of an environment also requires you to have the right kind, the right talent, the right kind of skill sets, people with right attitude.
Right.
And this is where I would also like to build another element, and which is often very talked about but not linked in this manner, is how well you have nurtured diversity into your organization.
Right. Right.
These are the occasions when you need a very different thought process, a lot of innovation, a lot of inclusivity, all those things which come into play.
That's amazing, because you've outlined a range of things here, starting with, and this is, when you talked about DNA and culture, and you said that the leaders have to walk the talk and build that credibility and trust. There's a Dale Carnegie research on employee engagement, that says that three factors that contribute most to employee engagement is the very first is pride in the organization. Second is belief in the leadership. And the third is my relationship with my immediate supervisor. If these three things fall into place, then you get the team member rowing in the same direction as the leadership. And then you have the speed that you and progress that you're looking for. So right from that part where you talked about belief in senior leadership and building trust, you actually came down to saying it's about creating an environment of psychological safety where people feel free to take risks and be empowered. There was a very famous line I heard somebody say is empowerment is taken, it's not given. So, what do you think at this point in time, purely from a learning and development perspective, are some of the skills that you are looking to develop right now or you think as the need of the hour in a situation like this?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, I believe, because whenever we talk of skills and capabilities, normally we tend to assume a kind of a static nature. I am a believer. I am a very strong believer of the fact that the skills and competencies have become so dynamic now.
Yes.
Gone are those days when I acquired something and the shelf life has gone down dramatically.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is the reason why now this thing is very important, that how, in addition to how is the organization responding, also how is it acquiring the new skills and capabilities to respond, to be future ready.
Right.
To respond to the likely future situations, because that is no more stagnant and
right.
It's so dynamic. So if I was to reflect on the last say 6 months or 1 year, if I extend this part of whatever business challenges that you've been pointing out for the automotive industry,
right,
I would actually say that perhaps both in terms of content and also the pace, it has been much higher than what would have happened, say, in the previous 2 years.
Right.
And
right.
that is what it has done. It has actually accelerated and hastened the entire process. There has been if you want, if you were to name some very specific skills, for example, all of us are working remotely.
Yes.
For the last 5 months now.
Right.
Is it not a very different way of working? It's massively different way, and operating and running such a complex business.
Yes.
With entire population sitting at home, right? Of course, apart from the people who are in manufacturing and who are in the plants, and they are going to the plants, but almost the entire non-manufacturing people working out of their homes, working remotely at different parts of the country, and just get the business going day in and day out.
Right.
It itself is a very new kind of a skill. All of us have been very used to the way work happens in office.
Yes.
How do I review? How do I empower? What do I supervise? What do I don't supervise? How do I drive performance? Everything has a new nuance to it in this kind of an environment. Of course, digital savviness, all of us have, I think, the amount of expertise that each one of us have gained on handling our own gadgets and the technology and leveraging technology itself. But this is a smaller example.
Right.
I think the bigger ones would come in terms of how do we engage with our customers without being physically present there?
Right.
How do we engage with our stakeholders? Because normally we used to believe, at least there was a very strong belief that in order to have a very deep relationship, you need to meet more,
yes.
And so without being able to do that, how still you are able to establish that emotional connect?
Right.
How do you engage with your employees, with your team members, with the stakeholders in this kind of a scenario? All
Correct.
of this, I suppose, are important part of the new skill sets.
And what do you think about uh, how different generations are coping with this work from home reality and remote working reality?
Yeah, so this is a difficult question, Palvi, and I won't claim to have the answers to this question because let us face it, there are a lot of things which are still unknowns in terms of how people are coping or would be coping during this work from home and remote working scenario. But very specifically to your question, uh, in terms of how are different generations coping, I have frankly not found too much of a difference. Now, it may be a little counterintuitive to a normal belief that uh, one particular generation may be more savvy or more amenable to this new way of working. I'm not denying that part, but I'm coming more from the point of view of finding your own way and finding your own style of coping with the situation. The styles will be different.
Excellent, excellent. So, I'm going to then ask you because, we are today living in an environment where the economic environment isn't the most conducive. And we've been hearing about more job losses than job growth. So, in an environment like this, there is a sense of, insecurity about jobs. So, what would your advice be to, employees at large? uh, so how does one, well, you don't like the word cope, but how does one deal with a situation so that we come on top of it in an environment where it looks like all the odds are against us? And what would make you a valuable employee to an
And
organization?
uh, the psychological safety is a very very important aspect of the mental well-being. It could be work front, it could be personal front, it could be any front, but at the core is the psychological safety. And in the organization context, since you mentioned about job losses or possible impact on careers, etc., therefore it's extremely important for the leadership to be very mindful
Mm-hmm.
of what are the messages which we are sending, which we are giving. It will be very seldom that we intentionally do or something. It's not only that, what we
Right,
do or what we don't do.
right,
People get messages from the way we are conducting ourselves, the way leadership across the levels in the organization, the way it is driving performance, managing people, and most importantly, are we showing concern and care for our people in these difficult times?
there's always one conclusion we have in the Dale Dialogue, and that is regarding the Dale Carnegie Human Relations Principles, and you're familiar with them. These principles have actually been the life force for many people for generations. Which one of these principles do you think is the most crucial at this point in time for people like you and me and everybody else? Right.
It's very difficult to strike off something or eliminate something as this is something which I can afford not to do. But since you asked me to do a forced ranking, if I can call,
Right.
the topmost or something which I love it comes, this is something which comes very natural to me. And I think it also relates to the previous question which you asked, and that is uh, trying to honestly see things from the other person's point of view.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? And I would call it, that's the foundation of building relationship, providing psychological safety to people, having empathy with people.
Right.
That is what human beings are all about, and that is what makes us what we are as human beings.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for being here. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pallavi. I enjoyed interaction.
Thank you.